through the Atlanta Filmmakers Alliance too.
Yeah.
Because when those films come up, the real jobs, they say was $3 to $5 billion come to the state of Georgia in film, right? Well, the real jobs is the ones those names that come up at the end, them 40 to 60,000. If we had some kind of way to where a building, we got the infrastructure. If we get, what we're trying to do is get a building and get some kind of grant or something to get started to start training people on those specific jobs.
Let's talk about that for a second. The film industry, that's a whole separate industry. Let's talk about that. I remember when I was in the General Assembly back in the 90s, the music industry started to arrive in Atlanta. And from Jermaine Dupri to others started to put the ATL on the map as it relates to them coming here, recording, bringing their businesses, bringing their infrastructure. And then I can remember there was discussion about the potential of the movie industry coming here because it's much cheaper to do a film here versus it is some of these other places like in California, New York. And I remember when I was the county executive, opening up some facilities and making available some tax breaks, and then the state did it, so it was like hand in hand. So all of a sudden, the industry is here. But back then, when people were in the industry, they lived here, but they had to go somewhere else to find work. Now we're literally seeing people move to Atlanta and Georgia because there's so many different opportunities now in the film industry. However, there is a skill set that needs to be matched. There are a lot of people and a lot more jobs that can be created if there was an infrastructure in place where, okay, if you're in the industry, whether you're trained to be a grip or whatever, here's where the government's partnering with the private sector where you can go get those skills. So it would create even more jobs because a lot of people want to get into it. They don't know how to get into it. They don't have the skills, and those are good jobs. And so I think with the state offering those incentives that we offer now, I think it's time for conversations with people like your organization and others to sit down with us at the legislature and say, look, as a part of these of the incentives for the film industry per se to get these tax credits, but what about making available resources for job training? Now that can be done through existing infrastructure government because most counties have what they call workforce development. That's where they go and they get state and federal dollars to provide job training, whether it's on how to operate a forklift or how to drive a truck. But who has it been implemented to add the film industry as to one of those areas where we're now allocating money for job training for them? And if they don't have it in-house, contract that out with people who are familiar with the industry in the private sector and give them those opportunities. And because government doesn't need to be in everything, but the government can kind of bring on a partner there. So that's a good opportunity. I think now is a good time to start having those conversations.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Okay. Let me see where we are on time.
We're on time?
Okay. Ivy, can you think of anything else I need to say?
I would like your take on human trafficking.
Oh, human trafficking. Okay. Well, Ivy, think about it now, because Ivy's far smarter than I am, and with a lot of information. So let's talk about sex trafficking, which is something that is it is just unthinkable that you have literally teenagers, and when I say teenagers, starting at 13, 14, 15, that are being just pimped and taken advantage of, where they are being forced mentally. Somebody's gotten in their head mentally where they have no sense of control, that there's somebody that's in charge of their mind and their body and being exploited. That is just unthinkable that is happening. But that is happening around this country. And when you look at sex trafficking, period, an adult can make some decisions on their own. But what you're seeing when you're seeing children who are starting out doing that and going into the adult life, they're perpetuating that even when they have kids, because that's all their children know because they're growing up in it. But there's a big focus right now on teenage trafficking because kids are not old enough to make decisions. They're being taken advantage of. And one of the biggest challenges we have right now is housing when they're rescued. Because right now, when they're rescued, either in the police custody, which literally at the police station until they can find some housing, or they're put in a foster home. Well, whether in the police station or the foster home, there are no wraparound services. There's no therapeutic actions being taken. There's no counseling there. Those young children are still scared that the pimp is going to come back and get them. And that a lot of them feel like what the government's doing, holding them, they don't want to be with the government. They want to go back to where they're pimped. That's where they mentally just checked out. And so that's a challenge, trying to keep them from running away. And again, there's not enough housing. And the governor's wife, Mrs. Kemp, she has taken that on as a big responsibility as the First Lady to work with those who have influence, whether in the music industry, the film industry, the private sector, Delta Airlines. You know, now when you're going through the airport, you're on the plane, they talk about if you see any signs of it. The Delta employees are being trained, the flight attendants are being trained on what to look for because they're being trafficking that way too. And the key is to find housing and get them counseling and let them feel secure and give them alternatives. One of the challenges, though, is that if you're 18 or older, the government cannot hold you. So let's say, for example,